The best time of the year is now approaching, November and December. And not only will there be some nice presents for the kids under the Christmas tree, but as well some retailers can get a big bag of presents if they're using that time, this time wisely. So really make November and December count, because there are a lot of different benefits that that you can gain during the season, and I will just mention here some of them. First of all, we have been talking about it in several webinars before. Overstock is a really important issue for retailers and brands this year. That's because there have been some miscalculations, unexpected external events, and it just resulted in the warehouses to be full. So if you don't manage to sell off this overstock during Black Friday time now, then November and December will be the last month of this year to really get rid of it. Second, I think we all know about this. November, December are some of the most important times of this year for the revenue generation. Despite the inflation that is still ongoing, consumers are still willing to pay a lot more than during the rest of the year. Also, during Christmas time, consumers are still they still like to go to shopping malls, to go into the city centers to do their shopping there. So the stationary retail is really important. It might be the most important time for stationary retail of the year. So really take that into account as well. Obviously, online shopping keeps on increasing, but you should really think about having separate pricing strategies for on and offline to get the most out of this. And on top of that, cross sales are easier. I think this is very understandable, as consumers are willing to spend more. They are also willing to purchase some maybe more rather unnecessary things, or maybe add more to their purchase basket while they have been already shopping a present for a friend. Maybe they see something nice for their mother or father as well. So yeah, so it's easier to influence them in this way and make them shop more. And so what we will be discussing today is how the pricing can actually optimize the retailers' end of year sales. And a little bit about us. So we are 7Learnings. We have won several awards for our pricing software that we developed specially for retail. And we have really tested this software in a lot of different A/B tests with all of our clients, and we could increase their profits and revenue generation. And we are based in Berlin, in Germany. So here you can see some of our clients that we are working with right now. As you might see, it's a mix. We have fashion, we have furniture, pharmacy. Yes, a lot of difference. All right. So as we discussed already, overstock situation still happening. So really don't start 2024 also with overstock or with drastic discounts just to get rid of the stock that you have left in your warehouses, because obviously you will be losing on profit and margin. So here we see it in a more in a diagram way. So what you don't want to be is an under or an overseller. So you don't want to oversell your stock, meaning that that you set a too low price, and then you get rid of all your stock of the products already in November, although you could have sold a lot more throughout the season. And actually, there is an increased risk to be out of stock because of the really high demand during this season. Also, you don't want to be at the yellow line. We have mentioned this before a lot. So you don't want to be a person that sells too little and just keeps on sitting on their stock. So what you want to be is you want to be the blue line. You want to get on there and you want to maximize your profit, and you want to sell off your stock throughout the season. But The big issue here is the biggest challenge to be able to be on this blue line is to have a correct forecast. And this we will talk a little bit here on this slide. And so first of all, this whole topic that we will be discussing now is called inventory-based pricing, because you base your pricing on the stock that you have. It's one important factor here. And this will help you to maximize the profit with the stock that you have. So you need to, like I just mentioned, you need to have a good forecast in place. And for this forecast, you should not only be checking profit and revenue sales, but also profit and revenue target, but you should also be checking your sell-through target. And the ideal situation would be that you would sell off all your stock at the end of the life cycle. In this example that we can see here, it's very typical, because here you can see that in the beginning of the life cycle of the season, the demand is still very low. So if you are in this situation, if you're in week 1, 2, or 3, you could ask yourself, okay, is this current demand that I'm seeing right now in line with the seasonal demand, or maybe are my prices too high and this is why the demand is low? But what you should actually be doing is to learn from your past experiences and know that the peak is still ahead of you and that the peak is still coming. So demand will catch up a little bit. And also consideration further down the line would be, for instance, what is the value of your stock at the end of the season? So coming up with these demand forecasts can be very, very tricky, because you need to consider a lot of different factors, and also you need to adapt quickly to external factors that change, such as weather or cost. So the complexity here is very high and is increasing. And actually, this is something what we are doing at 7 Learnings with predictive pricing. We're taking into account internal factors and external factors of our clients. So internal factors would be the product attributes, historical data such as historical transactions, historical costs, historical prices, the stock obviously as well. And then we enrich it with the external factors such as days of the week, holidays, and weather. And then what we calculate is the price elasticity. So price elasticity tells us how does demand change if we change price by 1%. And based on this, then we can create this forecast, because we know how the product will be sold given a certain price. We do this with taking into account 2 years of your historical data. And we're using machine learning and artificial intelligence for that. So we're doing this forecasting and then the optimization of the prices towards your KPIs. All right, we will dive into this a little bit further. Bear with me, this is a rather complex topic today. But what I want to get across today is that we are using 2 types of forecast for this. So first of all, we're using the long-term forecast, and then we are using short-term forecasts. The reason for this is that they have different pros and cons, and we really want to get the best of both worlds, so to speak. So we start with a long-term forecast to derive the target sales for then shorter time periods. So we want to understand what should be the sell-through rate for the time period that you're in right now, to really reach your sales target or your profit target at the end of this whole season. And this is obviously very difficult to understand, because there are always ups and downs in the demand, as we can see here on this curve. And also very important, now that we speak about November and December, is that you should not base these forecasts and Yeah, and these demand curves on the previous month, because the demand is so different in November and December compared to the other months of the year, that you should always be checking your historical data and compare it to the sell-through rate a year ago. And this is also what we write here on this slide. So the benchmark should always be 1 year ago. And based on this, derive then your target sales and sell-through rate. And here we turn now to the short-term optimizations that we then take into place. So in these short-term optimizations, we always take into account the sales targets that we have derived from the long-term forecast. And now here what we have is two weeks goals approximately. The reason for that is that you have less errors coming into place when you have a shorter term, and you can also react quicker to changes in the environment. Yeah, so by combining the short-term and the long-term forecast, we want to understand the development of the demand over the season, and want to as well take into account the accuracy of a short-term forecast. To make this a little bit less abstract, I'm gonna show you one example. So this bag, for instance, it's currently sold at 279 euros. And we don't want to oversell this item, so we want to reach, by the end of the season, kind of an empty warehouse. So we want to sell off all these bags. And now we want to find the price to reach this sales, so that it always stays below the target sales. So we can derive the target sales for the next 14 days. In this case, it's a quite easy example. So here we are assuming a linear sales of the item over the next 28 days. And the target sales is would then be 15 items. On the other hand, the forecast predicts for each price point, how much we are going to sell of these bags. And this is because it understands how sales reacts then to price changes. And again, coming back to these price elasticities that I explained before, here we really understand the price elasticity for each price point. So what will then happen? If we keep this bag at 279 euros, we will sell 19 items, which is above the target sales. Remember, we just wanted to sell 15 items. So then we can check, and only at the price of 319 euros, which is significantly higher as before, we reach the target sales, because at this pricing point, the prediction tells us that we will be selling 15 items in the next 14 days. And in this way, the solution would then propose the price of 319 euros, which is a more profit optimal price, and is also in line with our sales target to get rid of all these bags at the end of the season. And so this is a kind of simple example of how we use predictive pricing. Yeah, I just want to emphasize again that we are taking into account your historical data. So that means that the software takes into account how the demand was during the last 2 years. And based on this, it can make assumptions on how the long-term demand will be this year. And our clients can customize which category will be taken for the historical seasonality. So here we have 2 different categories, dresses and sweaters. So you can obviously hear the demand is very different based on which time of the year you're in. So then you can say, for instance, you want to take the demand, the historic demand for sweaters in December, or for dresses, which will be very different. Coming back to one of our initial slides, the seasonal profit impact is really significant. So by putting you on this blue, on this optimal curve, we don't only increase the profit margin, but we also decrease the overstock that you would have had at the end of the season. And here the impact is of 3 for profit margin at same sales and 20% less overstock. So now you might wonder how we come up with these numbers of this impact that we can deliver. Well, the reason for that is that we always run a B test with our clients when we start working with them. So what we do there is we take two products groups that are very, very similar. So here we would not take dresses and sweaters, but we would take 2 different sweaters that are very similar. And then we would take the baseline period as a reference point. And then for one of these groups, our clients are doing the pricing. And for the other group, we, with our software, are doing the prices. And we will let this run for around 4 to 6 weeks. And then at the end of this time, we check how much profit uplift did we generate, not only profit, but also revenue, profit margin, and sales. Like I said, you can really steer our software towards all these different KPIs. And then on average, what we see is that we achieve a 10 to 15% profit uplift for our clients because, well, one big factor is that our forecasts are very accurate and help you to get the best price for your situation.